The midterms election campaign season largely has been defined by domestic debates over the economy, abortion, crime, and immigration. But voters will also be setting the tone for the next 2 years on international affairs. So, what effect could the midterm elections have on US foreign policy? Let's start with China. There is a bipartisan consensus on China, one of the main foreign policy priorities of President Joe Biden's administration. The White House's current approach to Beijing's growing economic might and assertiveness is expected to remain relatively stable no matter what party takes over Congress. Republicans or Democrats, both are unlikely to shift the thrust of the Biden administration's China policy. In fact, expected victories by the Republican Party will almost certainly force the American leader to take an even harder line on Beijing. Next is Russia's war in Ukraine. Putin's invasion of Ukraine currently is in its ninth month. The US has led international efforts to bolster Ukrainian fight back against Kremlin's aggression and has provided Ukraine with crucial military, economic, and diplomatic support. That support has persisted despite deep partisan division in Washington, D.C., and rifts that have been on full display in election campaigns for Congress. The likelihood that Republicans will take control of the House has triggered concerns about the long-term support for the war effort, as a growing number of Republican lawmakers have voiced misgivings about an open-ended financial commitment to Ukraine. The politics surrounding aid to Ukraine is not an easy subject and is also being heard in political rallies. Well, on Thursday, during a visit to Pennsylvania, President Joe Biden said that the Republicans will have the power to back aid to Ukraine if they win back control of Congress. The war in Ukraine has had a direct impact on the inflation in US caused by higher energy prices, and what makes it even worse are the recent actions of one of America's most important allies in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The relationship between the Saudis and the Biden administration started out frosty, as President Biden criticized Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for human rights abuses when he first came into office. When US energy prices started to rise with the Ukraine war, leading to the famous fist bump the two shared back in July, not long after that, the Saudis cut oil production during a global energy price crash. This was seen in Washington as a major review for the United States and President Biden. There's been reporting that MBS, who's just 37, mocked the president and he prefers Donald Trump over Biden. President Biden and his White House is not happy with OPEC, which is contributing to rising gas prices just weeks and days ahead of the midterm election, and gas prices are closely tied to a president's popularity in the US. Administration officials and Democrats are now wondering if it's time to reassess the incredibly important relationship, while Republicans continue to push for increased energy production at home instead of continuing to rely on the increasingly unreliable Saudi partnership. Let's now take a look at the big picture. Republican control of the legislature also could amplify the voice of former President Donald Trump, who's expected to be the party's 2024 candidate, and who pursued an America First strategy that shook up US foreign policy during his term in office. Whatever happens on November 8th, President Joe Biden will still need Congress to pass his budgets, approve his nominees for key positions, and in the most serious cases, even approve the use of military force. And there are several current potential global flashpoints for which a flip to Republican control would have consequences. No matter what's the outcome of the midterm, November 8th will also be watched by almost everyone closely in Moscow, Beijing, as they are in Washington. In Washington, D.C., Reena Bhardwaj.